So I want to, as the paint dries here, I want to build the seat in here. So what I'm doing is kind of using these little rods that expand apart and measuring inside here to get that exact dimension. And then I'm going to leave about 3/8 of an inch on each side to allow the fabric to go over the the plywood and a couple of the folds of the fabric as well. So the bottom underneath I'm going to put a 7-inch seat cushion in here with fabric over top of it. There'll be some batting in there too that smooths everything out a little bit on the foam. But so you'll have 1.5 inches of plywood. So 2 pieces of 3/4 inch plywood. I think that should be plenty of strength here. As you can see, I did double up the pieces on the side here instead of just having one. I went with 2, and I dropped them down a little bit as well. They're all glued into the side panel, and screws are through here as well to make those nice and strong. There's some on the sides and some on the front. So we'll cut these 2 pieces out first, out of 3/4 inch plywood, and then we will glue them together once we fit them in here and make sure they fit perfectly. So this helps me to get the dimensions and take, like I said, 3/8 of an inch off around each side to allow for that fabric and the folding of the fabric and everything. So I have my plywood here, and it has 2 sides. One side is like a rough side, and the other side is a nice finished, smoothed, and they have some Dutchman in here to take out some of the knots. And this looks like a birch side, so nice and sanded. So I'm going to do my layout on the back side. So when I cut it by hand, when I cut it this way and I'm pulling up with a pull saw, the clean cut will come on the top side. And then I will flip these over, sandwich them together, and glue them up. So let's get these set up to cut these out. Oh, I guess I should show you too. This is the sticks for the measurement here, and so what I did is I took these and then pulled this back 3/4 of an inch, so there's 3/8 of an inch on each side to allow for the cushioning and the material and stuff, and with the fabric, and then did the same here, this measurement, and took off 2 or 3/8 of an inch on each side here as well. So we'll cut these 2 out nice and straight. Okay, so we have our lines all marked up, and we will cut the plywood here. And we really have 2 options that I like to use. They're both pull saws. One is a little more flexible, has a rip side with the teeth and a cross-cut side. And this one has a spine, which keeps it a little bit straighter, I guess. This is just for cross-cut, although it rips pretty well too. Could have stopped a little bit quicker on that one. So This this leaves it really smooth, very fine cut on here. It takes a little bit of energy, but the thin kerf on the blade here really cuts through nicely. This one works. This one actually takes a little more effort because it's probably about twice as thick as this one, the blade. But they both work pretty well. So this one you just have to be careful because it's thinner and it bends a little bit as well. Alright, so I'm going to cut the rest of these out and then we'll get these ready to glue up. I have both of the pieces cut, and on the back side I'm going to put just a whole bunch of glue. The back side, I'll probably just do one of them. Come in about 1.5 inches or so. Just put a little ribbon of glue. Alright, that should be good. This is Titebond 2, like I normally use. Alright, so let's put these together. Apply some pressure. Let some of that glue squish out. It's already starting to grab quite a bit here. So I'm going to line up the 4 corners. Make sure those all feel good. Alright, and then this is going to be the bottom panel here, where I bring the fabric over and tack it down. So that looks good. So what I'm going to do is I have just these little 1 1/4 inch number 6 screws, and I'll put some in here, especially in the corners. And just to make sure that really sucks these two together. They'll act like little clamps. Once this dries, I'll take these out. That looks good. I think I'll put one more on this end. And one in the middle. Okay. That all looks nice and flat together. Alright, so we'll let this dry overnight, and then when this is dried, I'm going to cut out little corners here, and that's where the front legs will go in, and then we'll just stretch the fabric around there. At least that's the plan. We'll see how that goes once we put the cushion on top of here, and then the kind of the soft batting that goes over top of that to round the edges. So, all right, we'll let this dry, and then we'll cut these out and fit it and see how that looks. So with the top and the bottom piece for the seat glued up, I am just going to ease these edges a little bit. I'll just use a block plane for that. Just wanted to round them over a little bit so when the fabric wraps it doesn't hit on a hard edge and over time probably cut it or slice it. So this will give it a little bit of an edge. So I'll do this all the way around, and then we'll start thinking about the cushion material and tacking the fabric over this. Alright, so I grabbed a chunk of foam, and this is 5-inch foam, and it's been sitting down here in the shop for a while, so it kind of discolors a little bit. Doesn't affect it in any way. And I'm going to put my board on here. I'll line this up perfectly. And then I'm going to leave like about 1/4 of an inch all the way around, just for it to go just a little bit past this, because this will give and push in. So just 1/4 inch or so. And then put a mark across the back. I bought this 24 inches wide by, I think it was 6 feet, 72 inches, so that I wouldn't have to cut too much of it. And I'm also going to mark these little areas in the front, cutouts here, and these cutouts here. Alright, so next we'll cut this out. I have a common everyday bread knife, which is just slightly serrated, not too much serration. And what I will do is just get a nice beginning cut here. This will slice right through it pretty nicely. Once I get kind of a start to it, just pull it apart a little bit. This is going to be covered with material, so I'm not too concerned about it being a little bit rough. It always is a little bit rough, as you can see. And that should take me about all the way through there. So a little bit rough on the bottom, but otherwise that gives a really clean cut with the knife. Alright, so for these pieces here, I think I'll have to reposition the camera, but I'm just going to cut in here and cut in here. and take those out. Okay, so for these, we will just find our 1-inch mark here. Cut down 1 inch, find our 1-inch mark here. And that'll cut right out that like that. Alright, we'll do the other side and then we can mount this. Alright, so I have the cushion cut, and then I have this cushion wrap material. It's about probably 1/2 inch thick. What it does is it just eases the edges of your cushion just a little bit. When you wrap it over here like this, it just softens those edges a little bit. So I laid it over the cushion from front to back, measured what I need, and I'll just cut this right across with the scissors. This came in a pretty good size chunk, like 30 inches by I think 10 feet. So put that over here. So what I did is I cut enough to go all the way over the front of the cushion here, all the way over and all the way around the back, and then there will be a little bit to go about maybe halfway, 3/4 of the way down the side. I didn't want to bind this up too much here. When I stretch the fabric, it might compress this just a little bit. So the corners, I will cut the corners here and here, so this just flaps down and this flaps down, and this whole chunk here, this whole piece will be gone. And then what we'll do is next I will spray this with just some general adhesive, spray adhesive on here, and then stick those together, and it keeps it together. It isn't such a big deal when you're mounting a cushion, I found, onto like a board like this, but what really makes a difference is if you just had a cushion and you wrap this all the way around the cushion and then glued it, this softens all the edges, but it also really gives you a slipperier surface to get the cushion in and out of the cushion cover if you would make like a zippered cushion cover or something. Alright, so I will glue this on here, and then we'll take a look at cutting the fabric. So I have the piece of foam that's 5 inches mounted to the double layered plywood, which is 3/4 inch and 3/4 inch. These two are glued together, and then this is I use the spray adhesive to secure the cushion to the plywood, and then a spray adhesive to secure this cushion wrap, kind of this batting material, to the cushion as well. So you can see how that was layered up, and I didn't go all the way to the bottom, so it didn't bunch up too much. So this is basically ready for the fabric to stretch over it and be fastened underneath. I should mention that the cushion that I went with is a 5 inch. It's what they call a 55 pound, meaning that from what I read, that a 55 pound weight will compress this 1 inch. So if my math is right, I have 5 inches here. That would be 250 pounds to compress this all the way. That's at the 50 pounds, and then add another 25 for the 5 pounds, 55, so it'd be 270 75 pounds it would take to crush this all the way down. So I think that's about right. When I sat on it, I couldn't get it to go all the way down, even close. So that's a good thing, right? And so I guess that's about it. The adhesive, I followed the instructions on the can, and you spray a medium layer of the glue over both surfaces, let them dry 1 minute, and then it's basically like contact cement. When you press them together, they form a permanent bond. They said you could spray it just on one side and then lay it down right away, and that would not be a permanent bond, and you could actually lift it up. So, all right, so next we'll get the material ready and we'll stretch that over. Okay, so this is the fabric that I went with. I should say we went with. And it's kind of a seafoam with a little bit of a kind of a streak in it, a little bit of a lighter seafoam, and it's a fabric. So this is what they call upholstery fabric. Pretty spendy, about 20 bucks a yard. And but you know, that's not a lot when you are making your own chair, comparing it to buying a chair. So I have the cushion in here, and I'm just setting it enough so that I can pull this up nice and tight over the top and fold it over one time like this, and probably allow about 2.5 inches to grab here, and then I'll be able to tack this down with a electric stapler underneath here, and that will be the clean finish. So I just want to make sure I measure out and have enough. It looks like that's about probably 11 inches here. I'll measure that all the way around, so that'll be enough to pull it up, and then we'll start to pull it up, gather it, and secure it. Alright, so I have this all laid out. I have turned out to be about 10.5 inches all the way around. So I have the piece of fabric, and I have a electric stapler, and I have 3/8 inch staples in here. So what you want to do is pull this up, and this is where that rounded edge where we ease that over with the plane really helps, because it's not going to be too hard on the fabric. So I'm going to start in the middle here, and don't be afraid to really pull it. I'm going to fold back maybe about 1.5 inches, so I have a lot to grab onto. I'll crease that, and I'll pull this up nice and tug. Helps if I turn the gun on. And we'll put a couple of staples here. I'm going to put them about every 1.5 inches and pull it really tight. And you'll see that the batting kind of grabs the fabric. So once I have 3 like this, I'll just work my way down, pulling tight. We'll go a little bit the other way too. We'll do it this way so you can see. Alright, so now I have that kind of how I want it. I'm going to spin this whole thing around. I'm going to pull this real tight. Pull this up and do the same fold here. Pull this up real tight. I started with the front because I'm sorry, I started with the front of the seat and the back because I don't want any creases there. I'm going to put all the folds and the creases in the side. So pull this up real tight. And we'll just work our way down here. And now that we have just a little bit done, let's see how this looks. That'll work. And you can see that this way it's nice and tight, has a nice edge to it, and a little piece of thread there. There's a nice edge to it, and then we will pull it this way, and that will give the cushion firmness the other way as well. So what we will do, flip this back over and find the front. The front has the angled cuts on it. I'm going to continue, do the whole front, and then we'll pull the back tight and get that, and then we'll come back and we'll do the sides. Alright, so both of the front and the back are done and completely fastened on there. So what I'm going to do here is I want this to be, the fold here to kind of be hidden so the front stays nice and clean. So I'm going to pull this across so that this is straight. You can see that this is all I've done. This is where the end piece is. I'm tucking this under, and I'm pulling this over, making sure that that looks like it's pretty square. And I'm going to tighten this up by pulling here. See how that'll pull it over? And then this will fold under here. This should be fine. And that gives it a nice fold there. I'm just going to tack it right here. And that'll hold this. I'm probably going to come back and cut some of this off. But just to show you how I'm going to do this. Now this, you can kind of pull this in down here and pull this up so that your fold, you can determine how wide you want your fold. The same thing will happen on the other side. Well, not how wide, but how far in you want it by simply opening this up a little bit or pulling some in. So you could have it like a gift wrap where it's way in here. I don't really care for that. Keeping in mind this is all going to be hidden in the side of the chair. So I'm going to pull this out about right there, I think would be good. And then once I have it like that, I'm going to pull up on this. And you'll see that will really tighten it. We'll put this fold underneath it. And then you have something tight here and something nice and clean there. Like I said, I'm going to go back in and cut some of this off. But then when I pull this up, I will just fold these under, fold that under, just like that, and you'll see two creases like that, but this will be underneath on the bottom side, and this will be on the side, and then we'll just fire our staples in here. So I'll continue to pull that up, and then I'll do the same on the other side. This is also, the rounded corners are helpful here, but this is also why I left that 3/8 of an inch gap between the size of the plywood and the side of the chair. So all this extra fabric here, which is probably only about 1/4 inch, it'll have some place to go in there. Alright. Alright, so the end is pretty close. So what I have is I've folded these in so that the pleat will be on the inside. So now this is where there's a corner right here. I just left a little bit of extra fabric here so that that corner will go right around the leg and it will pull everything tight when I put it in. So now I'm just going to pull these up. I tried to cut off all the extra fabric that I didn't need so it wouldn't bunch up. And we'll pull this out so it's just hidden by about 1 inch there on the side. Same on this side. And then I'll pull these up. Just check so it's not binding. Looks good in there. Fold this under again by about that 1.5 inches. And then I'll pull it up real tight. Do the same on the end here. Pull that up real tight. That looks nice. I like that. Fold that in a little more. Pull this real tight. And that should secure that. And then on this side, do the same thing. Pull this up real tight. Don't want to put too many staples in, because what's happening is you'd think more staples would be better, but if you leave them about maybe 2 inches apart, 1.5 inches apart, you break the material less often, and there's less likely, or less of a less damaged area to tear out from the stress of this. So I learned that a long time ago from an engineer at a flag manufacturing plant in Ohio. It's kind of stuck with me to this day. So some of these corners I'm going to just put one extra one here and one extra one right over here. Good, and that's how that will look. Has a nice clean feel to it. All right, so we'll do the other side and then we'll try it out in the chair itself. Alright, so here's how the cushion looks in the chair, and fits snugly in here. Just as I had hoped. I don't always know how things will come out, but that's the fun part about doing this. These folds went right around the inside of the leg here, and it's nice and firm. So now we just have to make the one for the back. I like the color too with the white, how that turned out. For the back cushion and the backrest here, I have a thinner piece of foam, which is 3 inches, and I cut this to, turned out it was 21 1/4 by 24. And then I have a piece of batting that I also measured out, and then this will glue here, and you can see where I've cut the corners out like this. That's so when this is glued, this will come over the top, because this will be visible on the top. On the back of it you'll see a little bit, and certainly the front. And when this rounds it over, it'll look a little bit nicer on the top. And then from the front, these will round over on the front, and the front will have rounded corners. Since these will be against the back of the chair and the back lower half, like where the lower of your back sits, those don't really have to have any of the rounded over. So I'm going to go spray these with adhesive on both sides, glue these together, and then while they kind of dry, I'll make the cover for this. The batting is all glued to the piece of foam. So this is all set. I took the dimensions of this and I cut out of the fabric. This is the back side of it right now. But out of the fabric, I cut out 4 pieces. And this should be all we need. So this is the exact dimensions of the cushion, with the exception of I added 1/2 inch all the way around all of these pieces, and that's what we'll have for our seams. So I'm going to sew all of these, and I'll come in on the bottom about maybe 2.5 inches here. Leave all of this open just on one side, which would be the back bottom side. That's where we'll put the cushion in, and then I'll hand stitch that closed. And that should be our cushion. So we'll see how that goes. so this is turned inside out right now, but this is the box, and I will not be ashamed at all to say when something sometimes like this is done, I will say to myself, I can't believe that worked. So on this one, I can't believe this worked. But it's a simple box sewing. So I left this part open, and this is the part that I will sew by hand to close it up. Now you could do some snaps, some buttons, some Velcro, a zipper. I really just want to sew it. This material is not machine washable that I saw on the reel. It's dry clean only, so I'm sure we'll just be spot cleaning it. And if I need to, rip the hand stitching out, turn it inside out, and have it dry cleaned if we ever need to. So the corner joints, they're kind of tricky the way you have to swivel them, but when you are done, they will look just like that. And it forms a nice kind of little corner. Before I flip this over, I'm going to snip these off here, just to give it a little more relief in the corner there. I don't have my scissors with me right now, but I will just trim that little corner off so when I turn it inside out. Okay, so I'm going to turn this inside out, and then to get the cushion in here, what usually works best is you will just fold the cushion in half and push it in there and then let it expand. The glue might loosen a little bit like that. That'll be okay. We can adjust it once we get it in there, and that shouldn't be a problem. I might even spray that one more time with glue. Alright, so I'll wrestle with that and show you the results. Alright, well, here's the final cushion, and turned out pretty well. The back here I have pinned where it's enclosed, and I will just do a simple stitch there, try and find some teal thread. But otherwise this is done, and this should be ready to go in the chair. I like that this is just going to sit in the back of the chair, so that it as the chair back goes forward or backward at the angle, this will kind of just go with it. So let's take a look at how it looks on the chair. That's how it will look. I like it. I'll stitch up the back of the cushion, and then really this is done with the exception of some of the more timely things. I have to put another coat of white paint on it, and then we'll sand it so it's rough in some areas, and then I'm going to put 3 coats of polyacrylic, the water-based varnish polyurethane, on it. That really does help protect it. We have other pieces of furniture, like a kitchen table that we made together, my wife and kids and I, and we put, I think, 5 coats of polyurethane, that polyacrylic, on there, and it really is some tough stuff. So once we sand the edges here too, or once I sand the edges, we'll have some bare wood, so it'll be good to cover those with some of that polyacrylic too. So I'll show you the finished piece after we go through all those finishing processing steps. So it'll probably be a little bit more shiny on the edges. Not much though. The polyacrylic that I have is a satin finish. Alright, I'll show you the final when we're done.